Welcome in to Seahawks Today by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here with you. So glad to have you with us. Coming up on today's show, we have the latest Seattle Seahawks news and rumors as we'll be discussing the possibility of Bobby Wagner coming back to Seattle and the recruiting pitch from K.J. Wright to bring Bobby back. What does that situation look like? We'll dissect all of that and more coming up in just a few moments from right now. Before we do, with the moves the Seahawks have made already, before even Bobby Wagner potentially comes back, Dre'Mont Jones is here, Devin Bush, Julian Love. We know about all the draft picks the Seahawks have coming up. It is an exciting offseason for a team that made the playoffs a year ago. If you think the Seahawks will be a playoff team again, then I need you to like today's video. 12, stand up, get loud, get proud. If you love your Seattle Seahawks, if you believe in this team, that they're heading the right direction, that they'll be back in the postseason again, go ahead and smash that like button. Give it a little tickle, and we'll get started with today's show. K.J. Wright speaks out. The former Seattle Seahawks linebacker and teammate of Bobby Wagner was on local radio in Seattle this week and had a recruiting pitch of sorts for Bobby Wagner to make his return to the Seattle Seahawks. Now, remember, K.J. Wright, of course, he ended up finishing his NFL career there with the Las Vegas Raiders, but then came back to the Seahawks organization and has been in a non-football role of some sorts, nothing on the field, but still active within the organization, right? And they're trying to find some more ways to use K.J. Wright. He's essentially a part of the ordeal, but maybe not necessarily employee, but have to think that K.J. Wright is still a very important voice when it comes to the Seahawks organization. And he said, look, the Seahawks need to sign Bobby Wagner. Here's what KJ had to say on Seattle 710 Sports. When asked about his grade for the free agency period, he said, I'm going to give them a B-. We're missing a linebacker and a right guard, and we're still missing a third receiver. I mean, there are so many guys to add to this puzzle. I need Geno to have more weapons. I need for Geno to have a guy that can isolate against linebackers, isolate against that nickel corner, and make plays on those third downs. I need a linebacker. In particular, I need Bobby to come back. I need the walking Hall of Famer, Bobby Wagner, to come back to the Seahawks. He is still playing at a very high level. Over 130 tackles last year, 6 sacks, interceptions. The fan base wants it. His teammates want it. It only makes sense to sign him back, to let him finish his career as a Seattle Seahawk. So you bring him back here, help with this run defense, help groom and develop these guys. Now, I think KJ makes a lot of sense on both Bobby and where Seattle is as a team right now. He's absolutely right. Bobby Wagner would be a huge asset for the Seattle Seahawks team and also what they're looking for. I think KJ might have a future, if he wants to, as a TV commentator or analyst, because he's exactly right. That's what the Seahawks need, or those specific things that he laid out. And yes, I understand that the Seahawks, their cap space is kind of limited now with what they've already spent. But if they can free up some cap space, if they can adjust some things, if they can push off some money towards next year or something, it makes perfect sense to bring Bobby Wagner back. You have a major need at that position. Cody Barton's gone. Jordan Brooks, we don't know when he's going to return. Bobby Wagner is that dude. KJ Wright is 100% right on that. We'll dissect more on what KJ had to say here in just a second. But first, let's ask you the same thing that KJ Wright pointed to. Do the Seahawks need to add Bobby Wagner? It's not should they or will they. Do they need to add Bobby Wagner? I say yes. Let me know what you think. Y for yes, in for no. You might get an ad break. If so, take advantage of it. Y for yes, in for no. Do the Seahawks need to add Bobby Wagner? Let us know in the comment section below. Let's go over the numbers for you on Bobby Wagner. And I got to tell you that they're still very impressive, right? Even going to Los Angeles last year and going to a different defensive scheme and everything like that, he still was one of the best linebackers in the National Football League last year with 140 tackles, 10 tackles for loss, 5 pass breakups, and 2 interceptions. You go back to what he did in Seattle back in 2021. That was a great year. 170 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 5 pass breakups, and 1 interception. Even as he's gotten older, he's still continuing to play at a very high level. With that, if they can't get Bobby, what are some of their other options at inside linebacker potentially for this Seattle Seahawks team? Let's roll through the other free agents. If they can't bring in Bobby, if he decides to play elsewhere, if they can't afford him, here's some of the other names to watch. You got Anthony Walker from the Cleveland Browns. He's a possibility. There's also Jalen Smith from the New York Football Giants is a name that's out there to watch. Also, Jayon Brown of the Las Vegas Raiders is a name to keep in mind, as is Zach Cunningham from Tennessee. And remember, you already brought in Devin Bush. Maybe you consider his teammates from the Pittsburgh Steelers, Miles Jack, potentially, and bring them together to the Seattle Seahawks from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Those are other possibilities. But as you can see, of those 5 guys there, Bobby is far and away better than any of those 5 names, with that said. I'll say this. I understand why K.J. gave Seattle a B- for his grade for what they've done so far to this point. But here's one thing that K.J. did not mention is that some of these needs that need to be addressed, that the Seahawks are going to change and better their roster, are going to be covered through the NFL draft. And remember, that is still the priority here. The Seahawks' future and what they're investing in the future, the championships are going to be won in April, not what you've done in March. I've said that over again. I'll say it time and time again. And for this Seattle Seahawks team, you've done really good in free agency. You'd like to have Bobby. You'd like to make some of these moves, but there's only so much you can do. The number one priority for Seattle is still and will always be the draft. And so while it might feel kind of incomplete, like K.J. Wright was talking about there, don't forget of what this draft could mean for the Seattle Seahawks team at some of those positions of need. Grade the Seahawks free agency moves so far. A, B, C, D, or F. What do you think of what the Seahawks have done to this point? K.J. Wright gave it a B-. What do you think? Is that fair? Is that what you're thinking, or would you do a little bit better or a little bit worse? Grade it for me. A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know in the comment section below. Folks, it has been a crazy couple of days here on the channel as we've been talking about your Seattle Seahawks with all these moves they've been making. When they've made a major move, we've gone live and we've covered it here on the channel. And if they make more big moves, we're going to stop what we're doing. We're going to go live. We're also live every Wednesday as is, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. We're getting you ready for the draft. We're talking trades and more as well. This is the place for the 12s. You better subscribe, turn on notifications. If you're a real one and really believe in this Seattle Seahawks team and a member of the 12s, you got to subscribe today. YouTube.com/Seahawks TV. Turn on notifications so you never miss a moment. So let's go over the other positions of need that K.J. Wright had talked about. The offensive guard spot. Dalton Reisner is a possibility from the Denver Broncos. I think he's kind of flown under the radar personally. I'm surprised he's still around. David Edwards from the Los Angeles Rams is also another possibility, as is Roger Saffold of Buffalo. Now, I understand Roger is not young. He's no spring chicken at this point, but he's had a pretty decent career. Then we got Justin Pug from the Arizona Cardinals, who's been in the division the last couple of years, obviously. And then A.J. Khan from the Houston Texans is also another possibility at the offensive guard spot for the Seattle Seahawks. You move to the wide receiver position. And obviously, Marquise Goodwin in-house is an option, but here's some of the other names to watch. And we've seen some movement today already at this wide receiver position. DJ Chark is a possibility, although he might be looking to be more so a wide receiver 1 or a 2, maybe not a 3, but at least he's one of the top receivers out there at this point. You got Richie James from the New York Giants. He's also up there, as is Demarcus Robinson from Baltimore. D-Rob, you go back to his days in Kansas City, a huge, deep threat. That's what he does best. That could add a whole nother element to this Seahawks offense. And I think people tend to forget, Geno was very accurate with the deep ball, stretching the field last year. D-Rob could be a sneaky good addition potentially. Jarvis Landry did not play much at all last year for the New Orleans Saints, but still is considered one of the better wideouts in the National Football League if he's healthy. And then there's Nelson Aguilar. Probably not coming back to the New England Patriots with the money they paid Juju Smith-Schuster, but he has continued to prove people wrong throughout his career. So we'll see what the Seahawks decide to do, if they go with one of those guys or maybe they draft at the receiver position, but we'll see. Name a player the Seahawks should sign. Who comes to mind? Whether it's somebody we talked about, maybe it's Bobby Wagner, maybe it's somebody else. Let me know in the comment section who you'd like to see in a Seahawks uniform coming up in 2023. As always, you can interact with me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Tyler Jones Live. That's where you can find me there, and I'll see you next time right here on Seahawks Today.